And we're live.
Surgery.
Hi, Mom.
Hey.
What are we doing? Stiletto?
Stiletto.
Stiletto.
It's called the stiletto. Unless you're Italian, which you are not.
I like sounding Italian.
Yeah, I'm carving on the stiletto handle. Pretty much haven't touched it for a week because I've been in China. Just got back the day before yesterday and am not adjusted to regular sleep patterns yet. So yeah, this thing's been sitting here, I haven't touched it, and it needs quite a bit more carving. I'm pretty much down to the depth that we need. Might go over it one more time to check on the depth again, and then start rounding off all these flutes because they're going to be real roundy. And right now they're not roundy, they're real squarey. Square. I'm going to need lots of coffee today. Could not go to sleep last night, even though I felt tired kind of, but just could not go to sleep because my body still was used to the other 14-hour time zone difference. So by the time I finally did go to sleep, I slept really well, but it was only for a couple hours. That's good. Coffee break. I think there's some donut in there. Mom brought donuts this morning.
That's because Mom was
It's like peace offering for being late, which she was only like 5 minutes late, so it's not like a peace offering. We wouldn't have gotten mad at her. Yeah, so I'm gonna just go over this thing again and try to make sure the depth is where I want it before I start rounding everything off. Because once you start rounding stuff off, it'll be kind of hard to tell the depth. Although I'll probably end up going over it a little deeper later too.
Hey, we should see the whole stiletto, like all the progress so far.
Hi, may the force be with you. Says Bryce.
The whole stiletto, there's a hole in the stiletto.
Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Thanks, Robbie. I bought a donut too. What's your favorite donut?
Hey, Sandpaper says
My favorite donut is some kind of fried cake donut that I don't know what it's called until I see it. Yeah, so this is stiletto. It's got like an 11-inch blade. It's a super thick blade, but the edges are ground really thin. It's actually really, really light. It's got a pretty cool like cross section. The fuller goes all the way down the tang, so I had to make the guard fit up like that, so it fits over the fuller as it goes on, which was a big challenge. Ended up adding an extra little spacer here because the guard didn't fit the way I wanted to, so basically had to do a guard fit twice. Got the spacer, then we've got the front spacer. Then the carbon fiber goes on here. I'm not going to take it out of that clamped up setup right now. Got the little balls, the blued steel balls. So the main part of the guard is stainless, and then these balls will be jet black gun blued when we're done. You go on the ends of the guard, and then this has a nice little cavity and a hole, so it just goes right over the end of the tang. And then you thread the, again, gun blued ball goes on the very end.
Hi from Paris, got Brazil, and we got all sorts of guys saying hi.
Hello.
Hey, Wolf says hi to Josh. I like that guy.
So that's the stiletto right there, minus the carbon fiber. And something else I got to figure out what I'm going to do on this piece is where I'm going to put my maker's mark. I still don't have any maker's mark anywhere on this build. Thought about maybe the front spacer. The curves on the blade and stuff, the really deep hollow grind, don't really lend well to putting my maker's mark on there, but I might be able to do it. I would really like to put it down in the bottom of the fuller, but it's a 1/4 inch radius down there, and to get my stencil to like lay flat down in the bottom of the fuller might not work. But it might work, so I might try that. I don't know. I'd probably use my smaller stencil because they have 2 different sizes. Might end up putting it on this place on the guard right here. Except I still think I want to round that a little bit. I'm not quite sure how that shape is going to be yet. But yeah, I definitely got to figure out where to put the maker's mark on here because it definitely needs it, and I don't know yet.
Hey Kyle, how many files did you destroy with the carbon fiber handle?
So far, I've destroyed this one. This was a really high quality Swiss file here. This was just a Nicholson. Destroyed this Nicholson. Destroyed this cheap kind of Harbor Freight thing. Destroyed this checkering cutter right here. I think there was one more somewhere. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 if you count this checkering tool as a file, which not really a file, but it's kind of similar. So like 6. I've got 2 more triangular files here, brand new ones.
Does the carbon fiber just eat through it really fast or something?
The carbon fiber destroys the files. It just it cuts it really good, but it starts to like smooth over the file really quickly, and basically polishes the edge of the file. Like it's kind of like if I took the file over to a buffing wheel and just like sat there and buffed on it really hard and just destroys it.
Jonathan Caruso said the spacer would be a good spot for a maker's mark.
Yeah, that might be good. The only thing that I'm worried about with that, I might end up putting it there, but it's kind of got a lot of curve to it, and my maker's mark is pretty wide, so I don't know if it would curve around it too much. Maybe I haven't actually laid it out on there though yet to see if that would work.
Do you ever use a soft backing when hand sanding? That's a father time.
Soft backing while hand sanding? Depends on what I'm hand sanding. I use all sorts of different stuff. I'll use really hard stuff, and then I got rubber coated stuff, and sometimes when I'm hand sanding on something that I want nice and round, I'll just use this piece of sandpaper with no backing, take a little strip and maybe fold it over in half, and sit there and hand sand around a round handle or something. So just everything in between depends on what you're doing. The flatter you want something, the harder backing you should have, and the flatter your sandpaper should be kept against it without a bunch of layers wrapped around it. Like you want something really flat. If you want something really flat, it's good to like stick spray adhesive on a bar of metal, and then stick your sandpaper onto that, and then sand it.
Did you mention a file you suggest a brand? Somebody asked about a brand. I wasn't listening to see if you mentioned it.
I'm just using Nicholson files. They're like the best around here, which are pretty junky. I wouldn't recommend them, but
Have you tried diamond files?
no.
Okay.
Let me see. What do I have for diamond? Dark hole of stuff in here.
Domino wants one of your billets to work with. He's just getting into knife making. Hey, we've given them away here before. Keep checking back. Maybe another one.
I don't have much in the way of diamond files. I think I don't even have a triangular one, or I had a triangular one, but it's missing.
Justin said he challenges you to invent a new Damascus pattern known as Royer Damascus. I laughed because Jeff, you know, Dad, he's got something in his mind called Dad Damascus.
I came up with that name.
Yeah, Kyle came up with it. So yeah, stay tuned. Don't forget some dad Damascus one of these days.
Dad invention. Nice.
When you're making your inset guards, how much offset from the Costco to the tang do you step down? Aubrey Hummer asked.
I shoot for 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch, but most of the time 5 thousandths is more than enough. You don't want to do more than necessary because it's just unnecessarily making your tang thinner. So it only takes a little bit. And then on some projects, I don't step it down at all, but most projects it steps down just a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean like 5 thousandths of an inch.
Have you ever thought of creating an image design for your maker's mark instead of just the bold text you use now?
Image design? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, I know we thought about, rebranding the mark. Especially, like, this is number 200. We really wanted to do it by 200, but just didn't have the time.
Do what?
Just kind of rebrand his mark, change his mark.
Oh, change his mark? Oh.
Wait, we wanted to do that?
Yeah, a long time ago, remember? We were going to do it at 200.
Oh.
Just change your mark.
Oh yeah, the Stiletto's knife number 200.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle, it's your 200th knife. Mom, you should go get Kyle's first knife and put it right next to it.
Well, apparently I need to go get coffee because everybody's like, coffee break. But if I leave, I won't be able to ask questions.
I've been drinking coffee.
Where is it? You're not drinking it here.
Yeah.
Oh, is it there?
Yeah.
Bear, take a drink. Everyone should take a drink. There you go.
I just did. It's almost half gone already.
Hey, was your first knife in the other room on that shelf?
Yes. On one of the shelves. Yeah, this file's really dull. Probably should get a new one. I'm pretty happy with the depth though. Yeah, I need to go over it a little more, just because it was a week ago that I last did anything on it. So going over it one more time now will help make sure I got the right depth.
Comparison.
Number 1.
Hey, no, put down right here. The first knife. Number 200th knife. So how old were you when you made this knife, Kyle?
14 years old.
Somebody wanted to know, let's see, he's French. I think it's Christophe. You want to know why you don't learn from your father? I can answer that one. Go ahead, Kyle.
Why I don't learn from my father?
Yes.
I feel like I learned from my dad all the
No,
time.
bladesmithing.
Oh, Dad's never done bladesmithing until about a year ago, so that's why I'm teaching Dad how to do that.
Right, his father is learning from the son.
I learned how to make houses with Dad. I used to work with Dad before I did knife making. We built a couple of houses. So yeah, I was pretty young because I started knife making when I was 14. But yes, so that's what Dad's done the majority of my life anyway, is work on houses and build homes. And only in the last year or so, Dad's been doing chef's knives and learning how to make knives for me.
Hey, Caleb says come tour Brownells. I will buy you a donut. I wonder if he sees your knife anywhere. Mention Brownells.
Oh yeah, Brownell bought one of my knives at an NRA auction, and supposedly it's on display somewhere with some of his other stuff that's in a public area. It's not just like privately on display. I don't know exactly where it's at, but it was a big, giant, double-edged bowie. It was the first of the double-edged buoys that I made with like a 15 or 16-inch blade or something like that. And he really got a kick out of the bluing that I use. That knife in particular didn't have any bluing on it, but he really liked that I used the bluing. I used Brownell's bluing. That was kind of cool. It was really nice meeting the owner.
Have you seen it, Caleb? He said, yeah, buddy. I'm guessing he must work there.
Cool.
Yeah, we made a write-up for it and everything that supposedly is with it, but I don't know. Again, I don't know where it's at on display.
Brendan thinks you should use silver wire in the carbon handle. I think a couple people said that. You want to talk about that? Why you're going with gold?
Silver would work really well too. It's just, it would be the same amount of work to do silver, so I'd rather just spend a little bit extra money and do gold wire, just because it elevates the piece a lot and everything. And a lot of the customers that I have really like gold in the pieces, just because it's gold's more synonymous with being luxury and expensive.
It's 24 karat gold, isn't it?
And like I said, it's the same amount of work either way. In fact, it might even be a tiny bit less work with gold because it's a little bit softer and easier to work with, but not really. It's basically the same amount of work. So I'm doing 24 karat gold. I can't really focus on this. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Oh, so Caleb has.
I'll just stand here and
He's in
touch it
there.
every once in a while.
Make it look like you're doing something.
Caleb's a gunsmith there at Brownell.
Should I go this way?
Ah.
He does the quick tip YouTube videos.
Ooh, can we see
He says
some of
I
the...
have. I think that means he's seen it.
Mm.
The Brownell location.
Cool.
Black and gold seems to be the Royer style. Are you a Steelers fan?
Is that soccer or baseball? Don't ask me about sports. You might be disappointed. There's only so much time in my life for knife making, guitar, some video games. Yeah, I don't have time for sports too. I will say, when I was gone for a week, something I was starting to crave was to play the guitar a little bit. So when I got back and played it, it just felt so good just playing a little bit of guitar after being away for like 4 days, or 5 days, I guess, without playing.
Didn't you, when you left China, tell us about that, like you left at like, what, 10, and you got back at 8?
I don't want to say all the good stories because that's a whole YouTube video that I spent a lot of time videoing, Josh. Okay, so
That's funny.
I went way out of my comfort zone and videoed tons of stuff on my camera and ran the battery out multiple times. Of course, every time I ran out of battery, there was something epic happening. I had a battery pack with me, but I didn't. I had it at the hotel. I didn't like have it with me when I needed it, so it was basically pointless. Plus, I couldn't have it in my carry-on luggage any time I was flying, so I had to like stick it in my pocket, and it was a pain to have. Anyway, I went way out of my comfort zone and videoed stuff all the time with like people looking and videoing in the car and on the plane and different meals and stuff. I had some of the different meals, so I'm really worried Josh is going to cut it down too small.
Hey, we have to have it palatable.
Yeah, why would you be worried about that?
And I want it a little extra long because there's so many stories I want to say, and that'll give me some time to fill in some of the slower bits with some cool story voiceover of what happened on the trip and everything.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that Josh just mentioned though was time travel. It is real, guys. It's totally real. I did it. Time travel is 100% legit. I left China, Shanghai, at 6:30 p.m. on Monday. Okay, 12-hour flight. I get to Dallas Airport, 4:30 p.m. on Monday. Time travel's real. It's real, okay? Time travel 2 hours somehow into the past, plus. Well, it was actually 12 hours into the past, or more, no? 2 hours into the past, plus a distance thing. So time and space travel I'm basically Doctor Who, okay? Only my little blue box happened to be a Boeing 777 full of people with a little tiny seat where I was like stuck for like 12 hours, except time travel, so I guess it wasn't 12 hours, I don't know. Yeah, just sitting like this, which felt like an eternity, but it turned out it was only 10 hours, I guess. I don't know.
Somebody asked if you had back and neck problems from your job, actually.
I do from flying now. I don't have any known back and neck problems. I probably will have some popping up someday. Hopefully I just got into it early enough that those muscles, like the muscles that allow me to bend my head like this, are not going to cause problems because of how early I get into it or something. I don't know. It'll probably be bad. I'm doing nothing on this. I'm just like looking at it, and then every once in a while, I'm like, just...
Have you ever taken time to make a knife for yourself?
The last knife I made for myself, yes, I did take the time to make it, and I kept it. I made a automatic folder that I did a class with Ron Newton, and that one I kept for myself, and I didn't want to sell it, even though I 100% made it. It's got a nice little Damascus blade and mammoth ivory scales, and a little tiny bit of gold inlay on the bolster, just like one line. And it's an automatic, so it's a liner lock with titanium liners, and it's got a little button on the side, and the blade will kick out with a spring that knocks it out.
Hey Josh, is
Do
this
we
going to
get
be
to
available to see
see
later on? Somebody's asking.
Yes.
Okay, NP 82, yes.
What was that?
Somebody want to know if the live stream's going to be available later on.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the stiletto. I don't know.
Could we see the knife you're talking about? By chance? Maybe? No?
It's in the house somewhere. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Remember where it's at.
Never mind.
Have you ever, Daniel wants to know if you've ever taken the time to make a knife. Oh, we already answered that. Sorry. Any plans for future collaborations with other smiths, like the one with That Works?
Definitely. Well, I guess there's not plans, but we'll definitely be doing more collaborations.
Yeah, I think that's where I come in. So we're working on a course, which is taking forever to do, and once we're done with the course, then we plan on doing more venturing onto collaborations with people. But right now we're doing a course, which is taking all of our time and effort. Yes.
Oh,
Anyways.
Jeff said Dad has this knife you're talking about. Jeff Royer.
Dad.
Does he have the knife you're talking about?
No.
Oh, okay.
Dad has an automatic, but not the one I was talking about.
Okay.
Who's Jeff?
But yeah, if you guys have any
Who we
questions.
miss dearly. He's not here right now. He's on a side job.
When is Dad coming back?
After Thanksgiving to finish a couple knives,
Okay.
and then he's going to be gone a couple more weeks.
A couple more weeks.
After that, on a double deck.
He's doing a some house
What's supposed to put me on there?
some house buildings. He's building some homes.
House buildings.
Whatever.
I don't want to go on. I just got out of bed and I came to work. Not ready for live stream.
That's what I did.
Yeah, but you're beautiful. Me? All right, do you want to open this box, Kyle?
Yeah, we could open it.
From Combat Abrasives?
Cool, let's open a box.
So I'm trying not to blow on this stuff too much because when I've been doing my heavy filing on here, I've been wearing a respirator. I'm not wearing a respirator right now though because I'm talking and that would be annoying. Also, I'm hardly touching up the file at all, but I'm not blowing on it right now to really stir up the dust. And the reason I'm wearing these funky gloves that I hate seeing in videos is because the carbon fiber likes to get in between your fingers right there and give you little tiny, tiny splinters in between your fingers, and it is so annoying, and it takes like a day or so before they, I don't know if they just absorb into your skin and go into your bloodstream, or if they just kind of leave your body somehow, but yeah, that's why I'm wearing these funky gloves. I was just putting this handle on this new file earlier, and I had It's got a little chunk of my glove got stuck into the handle. It's so annoying.
You got a favorite bladesmith, Kyle?
Favorite bladesmith?
I have one. It's you.
Me? I don't think I can say me. My favorite bladesmith is definitely John White. He was the most encouraging bladesmith that I ever met, and yeah, without him, I don't know if I'd be making knives right now because of just all the encouragement he would give me. I saw him twice a year pretty much, but the 2 times a year when I saw him at shows, I would just spend a lot of time talking with him. I don't know, looking back, I don't know if like I might have maybe annoyed him with how much I hung out around him, but he never seemed like he never seemed like he was annoying.
Hey, John White has passed away now, a few years ago, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago.
So what's this box?
This is a box of belts from Combat Abrasives. Never tried out Combat Abrasives before. Thought I'd give them a try. I normally use like 3 or 4 different brands of belts because I've got my favorite ones that I've kind of found over the years, and always get them from Pop's Knife Supply. But I figured I'd try Combat Abrasives because I see a lot of people using them, and they basically had the same versions of all the belts I use, only it's all in their one brand. So thought it'd be interesting to try. So I pretty much bought all the different belts that I use, only it's all in their brand. So I got the thick backing coarse ones, I got the thick backing finer ones, I got the thin backing like J-Flex finer ones, a little bit of everything.
Sam Pound said Combat are pretty good. So I wonder what that means.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
they needed improving.
Yeah, I don't know. Haven't used them at all. What I'm really curious to see is especially on the coarse one, because I love these Cubitron 2 3M belts. I mean, they're like, get so many miles. I get so much use out of these Cubitron 2s that I don't have used ones sitting around most of the time, because they just cut and cut and cut and cut and cut and cut so long to where you wear out the used ones, and before you know it, you have no used ones to do some really rough, like grinding of bar stock with or anything, because of how long they last.
Other than bladesmithing, have you ever wanted to try armor making?
Armor making. I've never really wanted to.
You did whips though. For a while, you wanted to do some whips. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And that's not armor, but.
Close enough. Just wrap several whips around you.
Will you do more engraving in the future?
Yes. Almost every one of my knives gets a little bit of something on it. This one, the Stiletto, probably isn't going to have any inlay on it, besides the inlay in the handle. But I might end up engraving my name on it though. If I want to put it on the guard or the front spacer or something, I might end up engraving it. Here's some 3 really thick backing ceramic coated sanding discs that I thought would be really nice to try.
How much help is your dad in the shop? And Dad didn't ask that. Wolf Party asked it.
Dad's done a lot of things in the shop to help out, especially when he first got here. He put tons of extra lights in and stuff, and got some of my equipment running better. The one thing I can't get Dad to work on is the press. I need the press to quit making diamonds and start making squares. I've been fighting it for a long time, and we worked on it like almost 2 years ago, but it's still not quite there. But Dad's done a lot of that stuff.
Oh, the challenge is on now. You hear that, Dad?
So these look like some J-Flexy, J-Flex type belts. We got some fine ones and some coarse ones, and then we got some thicker backing fine belts. So I like to have thicker and thinner backing ones on hand just for doing different things. Those look nice.
Somebody wanted to know if it was legal to carry in the States.
Yes.
Tell them about your
You mean your
what was that knife you wore?
machete?
Yeah, the machete.
Oh,
But you
yeah.
hardly remember it though, because
Yeah.
you were so young.
Mom, you tell it.
But don't show me.
I won't show
tell
you,
Don't show me.
but you have to tell it.
So Kyle's like 9, and this is how much he liked knives even then. So he had this big machete, because we lived in the woods, and he'd love to go out and just hack things down with his machete for fun. And he would wear that open on his belt everywhere he went. Walmart, stores, all over the place. And nobody said anything until one day, it was probably about a year later, some little lady come over and she was horrified that he's wearing this machete. So we stopped letting him do it. Yeah, he loved knives even then.
In the states, you can carry, you got to look up individual state laws, but in most states, you can carry like something up to like a 3.5-inch blade. But again, it varies from state to state. I don't actually know the actual laws in Missouri either. Like I'm pretty sure like automatics and stuff would be an issue. Like this is an automatic, but I am not concerned about it whatsoever because I've handed this to literally like 3 police officers that I know, and they can't even figure out the mechanism on it because it's like a hidden mechanism. So if I'm worried about it out in public, I'll just open it up manually.
Wolf says everyone needs to hit the
Super
like
hidden.
button. Thanks a lot, Wolf. Go. Okay.
So we've got 6 coarse ones here. It looks like I got some cheaper zirconium, I think, coated belts, and these will be just used for shaping wood and stuff because I like to have some cheap coarse ones on hand for wood instead of using the really expensive ones. And then we've got some. So this is supposed to be the Blaze equivalent 120 grit, with like a thick backing, and it looks real similar to a Blaze belt. Something that kind of catches my attention right away on these is like the edges. There's like big chunks of like the belt that are kind of chipped away at the edge on these cheap ones. I don't know, can you see that, Josh? Mm-hmm. Kind of a big chunk chipped away there. And if you look down through here, like there's some on there.
Not glued together super good or something?
So we'll see how those do. Those were really cheap though, so I'll give them a little
Do you know how much they were by chance?
cheap.
Cheap.
Kyle, do you play Age of Empires 2, perhaps?
Nope, never
Nope.
played that.
Drunkalunka asked. Tighten up the tolerance on the die, as Wolf said. Hey, Dad can do that when he gets back.
The big problem is there's like a 14-inch stroke on the press, and I think the guide rails are really worn in. It has 2 main guide rails that keep the top die that moves up and down straight, and those are kind of worn, so I think when that cylinder gets down and presses on the metal, it's rocking just a little bit, and that little bit of rocking motion, if you let it get away from you, can cause the billet to go from square to really diamond. I'm pretty sure is the problem. What would be nice is some kind of a little bit sturdier guide rail system that is adjustable, like with some heavy bolts, like a bunch of heavy bolts somehow. You can adjust some kind of plate to get it centered up just right, and so you can tighten it up over years because it's going to wear out over time no matter what you do. Or maybe even a large bearing system.
Robert asked, other than the new online tutorial, do you plan on offering any classes?
Maybe.
Not sure. Possibly. We're going to see how this online tutorial thing goes. Right now, the shop isn't set up for doing like a multiple student type thing. It's not even, it would probably work for like a one-on-one student situation, but beyond that, there's just not enough equipment and stuff because everybody has to be like borrowing one grinder.
So if the online course did well, we would be able to push into stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to do a hammer-in. Would everybody like a hammer-in? I love a good party, and I want to put on a hammer-in.
Yeah, so in this business, we're trying to like add all of the family's personality into the business. So we have Kyle at knife making, we have me at video editing and YouTube, and then Mom is like the party person who like really loves making parties and stuff. And so one of these days, once we get the money, we're going to make like a big hammer in, so that way you guys can come and enjoy it, and it's going to be totally awesome. And yeah, it's one of these days.
So these, I believe these are the shredder belts. So it may be a small thing, but something else that's going to make my job a little harder with these is the cheap belts that aren't ceramic. I believe, unless they just sent all the same one. Let me check the number. Because normally, like, the cheap belts I buy are like a different color than the really expensive ones, so it's easy to keep them separate. But these are like the exact same color. So it might be really hard to keep them separate over there.
So these are the expensive ones, and these are the cheaper ones.
Yeah, I think so. P96 3S.
AA-36.
No, that's not it. That's a
Oh.
different belt. P93 or 96.3. Well, that's the same number, but I don't know if it's just because of the backing or whatever.
The reds are ceramic shredder.
Oh. Okay. Those aren't the cheap ones. Here's the cheap ones right here. I got a few of the cheap ones to try out. They are a different color. So the reason that's important is just so it can differentiate when I'm over there. I don't want to grab one of the cheap ones when I'm trying to grind a blade, and vice versa when I'm trying to do a handle. Yeah. So those are the cheap ones there, and that was just the rest because I got 10 of these shredders.
Sam is sad he won't be able to meet you in, I'm gonna say, is it Canberra?
I'm not gonna try to say. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Is that where I'm gonna be?
Yeah.
I don't even know where I'm going.
Wait, where's he going?
That's Australia.
Oh, Australia. Yeah! Forgot about that.
Yeah, so I'll definitely need to give these a try. I mean, I don't want to be negative on them without giving them a try, but I'm not loving how the edge is really chipped up on a bunch of these. There's a couple of them that are okay, but get a close up of this one here, Josh. Like, there's just all along the whole belt, there's big chunks missing off the edge, and there's multiple belts that are kind of like that. Out of the 10 I got, like three or four of them have a bunch of big chunks, and a lot of the heavy grinding and stuff actually happens on the edge of the belt. Especially when you're doing recurves and stuff, all the grinding happens on the edge. But a lot of times I'll go I'll do a lot of rough grinding with a halfway worn out belt, and then to clean up the plunges. Whoa. I hate these gloves. It just rips out of nowhere as I'm talking. I think it got a little nick in it or something when I was handling these belts. Anyway, I'll go grab a brand new one to clean up the plunges or something. And I'm relying on that very edge of the belt to do my work. So,
Do you think you could do a test or something real fast? Slap it on your belt grinder and then put some metal through it?
no.
Sam says that's worse than what he remembers. Looks like they've used a harder glue.
Yeah, so they're not all like that, but I'm gonna say like 3, maybe 4 of them have some big chunks missing out of the edges.
Where do you normally get your belts?
It also took me like 2 weeks to get them in, which,
You get them from Tops normally?
yeah.
Tops Knife Supply?
I'll give them the lenience on the 2 weeks because they had to make a new grit or something, and they called me to let me know after I ordered.
Courtesy call. That was nice.
Where do you get your inspiration
Inspiration.
for knife making?
Instagram?
I think inspiration just kind of comes from all sorts of different things. Sometimes you gotta just force it up when you're drawing and you just can't think of anything and you just gotta keep drawing stuff. Sometimes, like, I'll see something, like I went to a museum a few weeks ago and they had all these picture frames and they were just super ornate and everything. I was going around the museum. A lot of people were taking pictures of the paintings, but I was taking pictures of like all the frames because they had all this beautiful scroll work carving on the frames. I didn't take a single photo of any of the paintings. I was And one lady came up to me and she's like, I saw you taking pictures of the frame and I realized how pretty they are. I'm gonna go around and start taking pictures of the frame too. So it comes from all sorts of places. I've seen some really pretty scroll work and stuff in video games before that I just like kept in my mind. And then with knife making, you know, I'm always watching what other people are doing and stuff, and try to take some cool concepts that I see other people doing and incorporate them into what I do too. And then with sketches and stuff, it really helps if you can like draw a sketch and then have somebody like my mom who I can take it to and have her look at it and tell me if it looks good or not before I start on a project. So that's not really inspiration, I would say, but that gets me going on the right path sometimes.
Mom, you're not inspiration. You just keep kind of on the right path.
No, I was saying Mom looking at a sketch is an inspiration, but it gets me on the right path of inspiration.
Thank you.
Aw.
And sometimes there is an inspiration. Sometimes you just have a project that you got to do, and you may or may not get inspired while you're working on it.
Yeah, and the customer wanted a certain thing, so you have to do.
What's a good way to measure the heat of a forge?
I don't have a good way to measure the heat because I had a pyrometer in my forge for about a year, but the forge environment is so harsh that it just destroyed it. So unless you want to keep buying the little end attachment that's like covered in ceramic that goes in the forge, if you want to keep buying that maybe every 6 months to a year, that works really well. Other than that, I don't have anything. I've got the heat gun, but it doesn't measure the temperature in the forge very well at all, because the forge lining or something, it measures the heat of the metal once you take it out of the forge pretty well, it seems, but in the forge I just get all sorts of crazy readings.
Josh
So-
should have a follower on Instagram.
I will say what can be really helpful, if you don't want to keep buying a new end for your pyrometer and it destroys it, it can be really helpful just to buy a good quality pyrometer and then use it until it's pretty much destroyed. And then in that time, you'll really get a feel for the temperature of the forge by the color and everything, and you might not need the pyrometer anymore, because that's kind of what I did. I had it in there for like a year until it was destroyed, and then after that, I was much more comfortable with knowing what the temperatures of the steel were in the forge, even without the pyrometer. I need to go hang these up somewhere, keep them separate from my other stuff so I can run a fair test on them. It'll probably take me a while before I like fully comfortable to say how I feel about them, because I want to use them really hard. And I bought a lot. I think it was $250 or $350 worth, which is quite a few belts.
Hey Kyle, Runka Lunka again. I think I'm saying that right. When you make up a Damascus billet, knowing what pattern you are after, how accurately can you predict the final pattern?
I can predict the patterns pretty well, especially if I take a lot of time before I make the Damascus to draw the pattern. Sometimes I'll use my phone or my iPad and draw out the mosaic pattern before I start making it to get an idea of how I want it to come out in the end. And you can draw, like, let's say you draw your layers going on a 45-degree angle. In my phone or on the iPad, I can take that and copy it and mirror it and flip it around. And then all of a sudden I've got, 2 pieces, and I could mirror that and have it going like in a little explosion. And that's a really quick and easy way to kind of see how your pattern is going to be developed and simulate 4-weighing the billet. And you could 4-weigh that again, all inside the iPad or on your phone. You can even draw in the W's before you start doing all the mirroring and stuff. And I've done that a couple times, and the patterns actually come out really, really closely to what I drew, which is pretty exciting. But that's something that I've started to do recently. Before that, I would just kind of play it by ear and kind of deviate throughout the pattern and come out with whatever it came out to be. But now I like to try to set a little bit more of a path for myself, because that actually allows me to make the patterns look more different and unique from each other than if I just kind of play it by ear. When I do that, it seems like they come out a little more similar to each other, even if they are one of a kind.
NP82, this is kind of cool. He doesn't actually make knives or work in any related trades, but your videos are really interesting to watch as your attention to detail, creativity, and personality makes your videos really appealing.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thank you.
You know what's fun? So I was reading some old articles. There was a big article in Blade. Kyle's like 17, and they talk about his attention to detail way back then even. So it started out like that too.
Oh.
What kind of quench oil do you use? Temperature to preheat.
Quench oil. I used to use cheap Walmart brand, or whatever the Walmart brand transmission oil is. I used that until a couple years ago for almost everything. But now for pretty much everything I use Parks 50 oil. Got a big old vat of it right here. That's how much is that? I think that's like four gallons or so. And temperature wise, kind of do the temperature depending on what I need to quench. If I'm doing a really, really thick blade, the optimum temperature for the Parks 50 to cool as fast as it can, I think is like up to 140 or 160 degrees, somewhere in there. So if you heat it up to 140 or 60, I'd have to look it up. But you heat it up to that temperature, and that's going to cool the steel as fast as it possibly can. The reason you heat it up and it cools the steel faster is because the viscosity gets lower, so it's thinner. So for most of my Damascus blades that are 1084 and 1520, I just use this at room temperature, unless it's a really extra thick blade. Because sometimes with an extra thick blade, you might need to get the center of the steel. You might need to quench it faster to get the center of the steel hard. It'll end up with like a little Hamon-looking ghost spot in the middle of your blade, and that is not fun. I've had to reheat treat blades after they were completely finished because of that. So it really depends on what you're doing. With W2 and like a clay hardened situation, I'll probably heat the oil up till it's like 100 degrees or so. And it's got a wide range of use though, and you can just do whatever you need to get your steel quenched at the right temperature. I recently used some steel that had a little bit of chromium in it. It was some 1084 with a little chromium in it, and the Parks 50 at room temperature actually hardened the steel too quickly and caused surface cracks all over because it needed to be in something even slower than that because of the added chromium. So it has a wide range, but there are limits as far as what you can stick in there.
Where did you get your quench tank? Somebody's asking.
Dad's asking.
Is it handmade? Did you guys make it?
I think Dad made it.
Dad made it. What did he make it from?
I remember him welding this on and welding this on.
Okay, how did you get your customer base? Oh, sorry.
Dad made it from a tank. I think the tank came from back when I lived in Mountain View, Missouri. There was there was woods behind our property and a whole bunch of Sinclair gas station junk all scattered. And tons of useful tanks and everything. Like the frame for the press and all that was built out of junk in the woods behind our house, basically. A Sinclair gas station post. But I think this was just some kind of tank that was back there that Dad used to make the quench tank. Oh, something else that's really important since we're on this subject. The quantity of oil is very important. It's taken me some literal tears to figure out the quantity of the oil can be so important, because I used to only use this small tank right here, which is like a 3.5-inch square pipe. And if you're heat treating a blade that's like some of my blades are really massive, like when I heat treat, it might be a mosaic pattern that I haven't even ground the edge bevels in yet, and I'll heat treat it, and it could be like 2 inches wide and like 16 inches long. There's so much metal there that if you heat treat it with not enough oil, it'll heat the oil up and not quench the blade fast enough, because the oil gets hotter than it should be, and it actually quenches the blade slower, and you'll end up again with those little Hamon-looking patches in the center of the blade, and they are miserable because when you etch the blade, it's kind of like a little soft spot in the center. It doesn't really hurt the performance of the blade at all, but you etch the blade, and that little soft spot in the center etches differently than the rest of it. You end up with these like patches of hamon stuff showing through your Damascus, and that is something you do not want unless you put it there on purpose. You don't want it showing up on its own. So having the right quantity is really important. You can never go wrong with having extra oil if you're worried about it. So that's why this tank is like a 9-inch diameter pipe full of oil, like 4.5 gallons, just so I'd have plenty of quantity compared to that little tank.
How bad will forging bevels mess up a pattern in Damascus?
I need coffee.
I
I got some jet lag going on still, guys. I've been home for one day and I pretty much slept all day yesterday.
But you couldn't sleep last night?
Yeah, because I'm used to sleeping. What is normal day here, I was used to sleeping in over there, and then when it was night here, I was up all day over there.
Oh, and there's another question. How'd you grow your customer base starting out?
Which the jet lag wasn't bad when I was over there because, you know, it was only one transition, but being there for like 4 days and then coming back, that's really, because I was just starting to get used to it more.
So we got a bevel question and a customer question, customer base. How bad will forging bevels mess up a pattern in Damascus? Matt Wyeth is asking.
Well, it really depends a lot. The patterns in Damascus are all some form of distortion, okay? To get a pretty pattern, pretty much no matter what, you're doing some kind of distortion and it makes a pattern. Let's say it's a mosaic pattern. What distortion are you doing? You're doing W. You might be doing a W mosaic, so you're getting distortion and making those layers curve down. Instead of flat, straight layers, they're like curving down into C's, and then those are becoming W's, and you're like four-weighing and all that stuff. That's all just distortion. So when you forge out an edge bevel, it does a different type of distortion where it's stretching the steel out kind of down and kind of forward maybe, and then back here it might be kind of going back a little bit. So that can be good on certain patterns, like a random pattern. It looks really good to have that forged in because it kind of compresses the layers more and just makes it look more like a wood grain that kind of flows with the blade or something. But then there's other patterns where you don't want to stretch that out at all, like sometimes really fancy mosaic patterns. But it depends on what style you want to do too, because some guys really like that distorted look, even on the mosaics. They like it. They like to see that you stretched it down and you forged the tip in and stuff. I'm more of the idea that I like it to be really uniform across the blade, but neither way is wrong, and it's all just some form of distortion. So you just have to choose how much distortion and where you want it, and you be in charge of where that distortion shows up, and don't let the blade be in charge of it.
How did you?
Does that answer that?
I think so. It sounded cool.
Two people
I should read more while I'm talking.
Colton and Ninja, please, want to know how you grew your customer base.
I thought you said something about brewing at first. How I brew my customer base? I brew it up like a good batch of beer. How I grew my customer base. It's really been a dynamic, changing thing over time. But the biggest thing was probably blade forms back in the days when I first started out, because there wasn't a whole lot going on. Like there wasn't Facebook and there wasn't Instagram and there was YouTube, but nobody was doing anything on YouTube. So blade forms was like the #1 place that I could find anyway, where people were gathering together in one spot on the internet to talk about knives and buy knives and get better at making knives and stuff. So I posted all my stuff on there, and it really helped out as well that I stuck with my brother Caleb when I first started out, and really stuck with him as far as getting my knives photographed. Because for the first couple of years, like maybe the first year or two, his photos weren't super good, but I had him photograph every one, and that really helped out. But then after that, like 1 or 2 year period, his photos started getting really good and competitive with the other professional knife photographers. And then I just continued to have him photograph like every one of my knives, and that helped a bunch, because that just gave me way more content to have for the internet, having every knife photographed instead of having like one out of every 3 or 4 knives photographed. I just had more stuff to put out there because I had my brother, and his photos were like basically free in the beginning. He only charged a little bit until later on they started getting more and more expensive. So blade forms, but I wouldn't recommend that now though, because I don't know. I haven't been on blade forums in a long time. It might be good still, but there's so many different things.
I think the Blade magazine article like gave you a huge jump. The phone started ringing like crazy. Remember that? It was a 5-page article. That young and that good.
Oh, yeah.
That helped a lot.
That might have been
And
good.
we sent pictures to Blade magazine,
Mm-hmm.
knife
mm-hmm.
photos.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't rely on that though, because
No.
like getting into magazine is so random. Like you may or may not get into magazine. I don't think I've been in Blade magazine in years, just because I think it kind of goes like with whatever trends are out there or whatever. And but definitely send photos in and get photos sent in there just so they have them there in case they want to put you in a magazine. Also, the Knives annual book is really good. And there's a higher chance of getting in there too, because they have so many different knives in there, and they do the book every year. So if you have some nice knives, it's a lot easier to get them in that book. That's what I just said, isn't it?
So basically,
I
get
explain
yourself in
things.
front of
I
people.
explain things like 3 times. because Josh,
That's where I come in
Josh
handy.
cuts out 4 times, so I have to explain it at least 3 times, and every once in a while something will make it.
So get yourself out there.
Yeah,
Basically.
basically,
Gotta get in
from
front
what I
of people.
understand, get an Instagram and post your work and
Just
be
try
proud
it
of
out
your
there.
work too.
Yeah,
And get that in front of people.
Not necessarily Instagram, just whatever. Definitely some form of social media. You need to get on a social media of some kind and really work it hard. And that may be Instagram, that may be YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is, but just try to stay current with whatever the newest ones are, because they change over years. And one that was really relevant 10 years ago or whatever, or maybe not 10 years, but one that was really relevant 3 years ago may not be relevant now so much. So you gotta dynamically change and go with time. You can't be just set in one thing. And it's the same with knife making and life and everything in general. Just gotta be flexible and keep pushing forward and into new things, and not being like stuck in something in the past, or you'll end up staying in the past.
I would like to say something. If you do have an Instagram or YouTube, something that's really helped us is consistency. We try posting once a week on every Tuesday. Like, if you convert that to Instagram, just stay consistent with it. I think it's really helpful. Next question.
My coffee's cold and my head's getting hot. I think it's warming up in here finally. It's
Are there
cold outside.
Are there some newer makers you enjoy watching on Instagram?
Newer makers. Oh boy. There's so many. I follow like 500 or something, 400 or 500 people. Who's newer?
That's a blank. If you
Next
can write
question.
that in later. You can write it in later once you remember.
There's a whole bunch on there. I can't even think of who's newer or something. I don't want to say newer because somebody might have been doing it for 5 years and I think they're new. It's a little hard to keep up with how long somebody's been doing it. I feel like I'm a new maker, but I've been doing it for 15 years now, so I don't know.
There's a YouTube idea. We could top 5 month of makers of the month or something like that. Never mind.
Top 5 makers of the month that I happen to be following on Instagram.
That'd be cool.
Out of all makers.
Next question.
What's the hardest thing to learn with, well, he said blacksmithing when you start. Translate that to bladesmithing. Well, it's 9 o'clock. It's all gone.
It's all gone. The hardest thing of what?
What's the hardest thing to learn with blacksmithing when you start? Pissed off.
That's a good question. I'm just trying to think of how to answer it.
Put a little thinking bubble right here. Bloop. Bloop.
I think one of the hardest things for me was having these different things I wanted to do, but feeling like I was limited by the tools I had, like being limited by the forge I had, being limited by the torch, by the anvil, by the hammer and stuff. So getting over the hump of where I had some of the tools that I wanted to do do the process the way that I wanted to do it was really trying on my patience and stuff to get some of that stuff initially going. That was the hardest part about getting into it for me. But then, like learning the knife making and getting good at knife making was after that stage. That's when that became harder. Once I started having the tools, and then I couldn't blame my work on not having tools anymore or whatever, because I had the tools that I wanted. So then it became about getting better at making knives and stuff, and not so much about trying to get that anvil or trying to get my forge hotter or whatever. Because in the beginning it was a struggle just to get the forge hot enough, to forge well. But now that's like never a problem, ever. And in fact, if I actually stop and think about it, it's actually a nice thing that I don't ever have to worry about my forge not getting hot enough. And I actually had that problem at some point where my forge wasn't getting hot enough. But now I have to worry about my forge getting too hot because it'll melt the billet. So getting over that hump of having some of the initial tools was kind of difficult for me.
What is your favorite process in bladesmithing? Sam asked.
Is it hand sanding?
It's not my favorite.
Well,
I don't
like
think
the
there's.
variety.
You love it when Damascus comes out right.
Yeah, let's see if Josh and I can answer this one.
Yeah, I mean, So Kyle's favorite is whenever everything turns out just right and the knife is done and shipped off.
When it's time to engrave, like he's glad for the change, but he's ready for it to be done in the end. And go on to the next thing, right?
Yeah, there's probably not one favorite thing. It's probably just a whole bunch of different things. Like, I really like Fort Damascus. But at the same time, I really enjoy hand sanding because by that point I've spent a lot of time trying to get Damascus to come out the way I want it to, and spent a lot of time grinding my blade and stuff. So hand sanding is just something where I can kick back and listen to some music and not really put I don't have to worry about destroying my blade while I'm hand sanding. Like, there was a point when I could destroy a blade hand sanding, but now that's not an issue. I never destroy a blade hand sanding, but I still destroy blades forging, still destroy them, grinding. So that's just a nice little treat to relax and not worry about destroying it. But then I also I like fitting up all the handle pieces and just seeing all those components come together. And I really enjoy the engraving and stuff, even though I have a really hard time drawing the scroll work that I want to. I feel like it's holding me back the most with that, but I really enjoy that because it's completely different. Leave the shop, go inside, sit at the engraver, and it's like a completely different thing. All this other stuff feels related somehow. Like, I know they're different things, like forging and grinding and making a handle, but it all feels like one thing to me. But the engraving feels like its own separate entity, like it's a different job. So it's nice to go in there and do this completely different thing on the knives. And then I would say I really like it when the knife comes together the way I want it to. But a lot of times by the end of a project, my patience is pretty much gone, so I'm kind of done seeing the knife. My favorite thing, as far as seeing the finished product, is probably like if the knife is there like a month later, or if I see the knife a couple years down the road or something and I see it, then I really like it, because by then I've forgotten about all the frustrations that I might have had during the project, and it's like, wow, this is nice. I like this piece. But normally that doesn't really happen when I get it finished, just because, like I said, my patience is at its end by the end of a project.
Yeah, I remember when you were doing the sword, at the end of the sword build, it was like 5 hours in, and you were like, you still you didn't know it was done yet. Like, you were still looking at like, it's not done yet. And it took like a whole day or two to like be like, wow, this is done. This looks really good. I love this thing.
I don't know if I ever got that feeling though, because the sword got shipped off pretty quickly and I haven't seen it since. So I don't know that I ever got that feeling like, I really love this thing, even though it did come out really good, and I'm sure I would get that. But I never got that final closure on that project, because it wore my patience out. Like, the other projects get close to it, but that one uses it all up.
Where do you get your stencils?
Hang on, we should get more coffee.
Oh, okay.
Well, I can answer one. Brunkalunka, Kyle's mom, do you have a favorite piece from Kyle's work? Well, naturally, it's one he made for me a long time ago. I think it was pre-Journeyman, and it was a dagger necklace and he called it the Queen's Dagger. The pommel looked like a crown, and it was a mammoth ivory, fluted mammoth ivory, a little Damascus dagger stuck into a beautiful stingray sheath, and then put on a necklace. So that, of course, is my absolute favorite.
Hey, you should take an Instagram photo of it.
As far as like, because I'm really into relationships, character building, all that stuff. So that one would be the sword, because there was so much sweat, tears, you know, character building, and just grit put into that sword. So that thing like means a lot to our family.
And the course knife, that one's really cool.
We went through a lot getting that thing
Oh,
done.
the course knife is one of those. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's my favorite. No, what's your favorite?
The course knife. Is that what the question was?
Well, he asked me what my favorite knife was.
Okay.
So what's yours?
I was just thinking about coffee the whole time you were talking.
Oh boy.
The course knife. I'm very proud of the course knife, and it's been around for a while because we definitely don't want to sell it until we get all the course done and stuff in case we need to shoot more footage of it or anything. The course knife. I love it. It's been done for a while now. I've had that chance for me to leave the project and then come back to it like a month later and get that feeling like, yeah, I like this. And I really do like it.
And I think for me, that's probably my favorite as well, like the course knife, just because you and I spent so much time videoing it, doing every single little detail. There was a lot of pain in that knife, but a lot of good times too. Because I was out here the whole time for like, what, a month, 2 months, videoing it?
Like a month and a half.
Yeah. So I feel like I could almost make that knife, and I've never made a knife ever, but I don't know, I just feel really connected with it because like I saw every single millisecond of it being made. Mom's getting the course knife.
You mean you saw every second of it being made like 10 times because you edited
Yeah,
it?
like 10 times because I had to edit it, and I'm still editing it.
By the way, that normally wouldn't take a month and a half to make if you're getting worried about spending that long on a plain carbon buoy. The reason it took a month and a half is because videoing every second of it and explaining everything with so much detail took an exponential amount of time, way more than we thought it would.
Yeah. How long would that normally take you?
Probably like 2 weeks or so. Two-ish, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, we had a lot of retakes and stuff, trying to get it nice and professional for you guys. Ooh.
Yeah. Every time I pull it out, I'm like, yeah, I like this one. It's got a bunch of oil on the blade. I'm gonna just leave it oily for now.
What kind of oil do you use?
The oily kind. Rem Oil most of the time. For my pieces. Remington gun oil.
Wow.
I like this one. It's probably one of the cleanest, like, it's probably one of the most clean, simple, like, buoy that I've done. Because it's got a relatively, like, simple style to it, but it's just, like, clean and, I don't know, the lines are good. I really like it.
And this is, we call it the course knife because we're making a course currently. We're still editing it and stuff. And it's kind of almost ready. Not exactly sure when it's going to be ready, but hopefully
December 2nd is
soon.
the goal.
And it is our goal to help you guys be able to make that knife. And it's going to be like, I don't know, 10 to 15 hours of content and stuff. It's going to be super awesome. We're super excited about it. And we know you guys been wanting really in-depth details on how to do something, so this would be that. Anyways.
10 to 15 or 15 to 20?
I guess, yeah.
We're still working on that.
We're still working on it. Okay, I videoed 60 hours of content, and I have to edit through all of that. 60 hours of content. That's like 2 terabytes. Ah! Anyways.
Robert and Josh have been watching the series Journeyman Master
Oh, yeah.
several
That was a good
times,
series.
Josh said. Yep.
That was a good series.
Yep.
Mom, what's your favorite nonfiction book?
Me?
Yes.
Oh,
You're
wow.
famous. Okay. Mom's always coming to work. Guys, I'm reading this new book on relationships. I'm reading this new book on marriage.
I only read nonfiction.
They're all nonfiction.
Yeah, all nonfiction. I read this new book on how to be a better business person. I read this new book on how to do classes better, how to do courses better, how to be a better speaker. It's Constantly. It's pretty funny.
Wow, now I know how it feels, Kyle, to be on the spot. You have something to say while I think about it?
No.
Anyways, we should probably start wrapping it up. Hey, let's get
Wrapping what up?
85 likes in the next 30 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, I have a good one. Seth Godin, he just recently did a marketing book. Awesome. It's his most recent book, Seth Godin. It's really good. Right now I'm reading some stuff on the Enneagram personality profiling, just to try and learn the personalities of these dudes I work with, because they're very complicated creatures.
How tight do you want it wrapped up?
That's good.
Kyle, what kind of music do you listen to while you're working?
There, wrapped up.
Leave on that note.
Music.
You want to turn one on?
He wrapped it up.
Turn on music.
No.
We got the phone is recording right now. That's what I. That's what I do. Is it called recording when it's live?
Videoing, recording, live.
Cove is living.
The phone's live.
I like a bunch of different music, and it constantly seems like it's changing, especially since I started playing guitar like 6 months ago or so. That's really taken me on an appreciation for music that I never really liked very much, especially oldies. Like, I always liked oldies, okay? Dad loves oldies, but now I really like some of them. I'm working on playing Back in Black a little bit because it's like classic, quintessential oldies rock sound to it. But yeah, so oldies. I really like some Megadeth songs. I've been listening to a bunch of Buckethead because that's amazing, amazing guitar. Amazing. NF. Used to really like Lecrae. Don't listen to him. Haven't listened to him much recently.
What about that Theocracy?
Oh, there's a couple of Theocracy songs that one of you guys got me onto. I don't like a bunch
Skillet?
of them, but there's a couple of them that I really like, and I'm learning to play one of them actually. Their main song. Skillet. Love Skillet. They're my go-to band that's kind of been steady, like something steady that I've liked for a long time. It's not one that just kind of comes and goes. That's pretty much the main one.
Cool.
Coffee break. Nice and warm again.
Kyle, we had 74,
We're supposed
75.
to turn this light off when I'm standing here so it doesn't look like I have raccoon eyes. Josh,
Sorry.
I'm doing your job.
Hey, so we had 75 likes, and then I said, yo, leave a thumbs up in the next 30 seconds. And then we got 90 likes
90 likes.
in like 10 seconds. You guys are
Wow.
awesome. Isn't that
Thank you
cool?
so much.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyways, yeah.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have an awesome day.
Mom's leaving.
Thanks, guys. It was really fun hanging out. I was planning on working on that while I was talking. That never seems to work. I can't seem to work while I'm like talking. So I got nothing done on that. But I'm gonna get on that today and file away, get my respirator on, get some glovies on, and get this thing shaped, because I feel like I've been shaping this thing forever, especially because I just took a week break on it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!